Hey everybody, welcome back to Your Dawn of Drones podcast. I'm Dawn Zoldi, your host and the CEO of P3 Tech Consulting. We are kicking off a brand new month dedicated to this theme of support to critical infrastructure, sponsored by SAIC. And we have an incredible guest with us here today, Billy Jackson. He is the Business Development Director for SAIC. Now, some of you may have been expecting Greg Fortier, who is the VP of Army Business, but I know he actually has a very much longer title technically than that. But, you know, as they say in the Air Force, which is where I'm from, flexibility is the key to air power. And Greg is out there in the field testing some counter UAS systems with the Army in Yuma, Arizona. And so we've got Billy with us here today, holding down the fort, going to walk us through everything that SAIC is doing to protect our critical infrastructure here in the United States. So great to have you, Billy. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Dawn.
Yeah, absolutely. So Billy, folks don't know you and you've got this stellar career, also former military. Please tell them a little bit about yourself.
Hey, I appreciate the comment, stellar. So it might be a letdown for the audience who are expecting Greg Fortier. Greg Fortier is actually a guy I work with very closely and actually a personal friend of mine, but he's got a much more impressive resume than I do. My background is not impressive. I spent 28 years as an active duty Army officer, spent the first 12 of those years flying Black Hawks and leading troops that fly Black Hawks. Then I spent the last portion of my career as an acquisition officer leading Army aviation programs, most notably the Black Hawk helicopter and the Lakota helicopter, as well as some smaller classified aviation related programs. And so I'm really happy to be here with you. I've spent about 2.5 years here at SAIC, and I was 2.5 years learning about counter UAS technology and how we can do a better job serving the needs of our customers.
Well, you clearly get the humility badge there, Billy, because it's like, oh, no, I don't have such a great background. I was just this incredible pilot. And, you know, I did acquisitions for the Army on aviation like the Black Hawk. So anyway, we are super glad to have you. You have a credible background. And guys, if you missed Greg in our Full Tilt Leadership podcast, go back and check that out. Really great show as well. But let's get back to this because you know, Greg, folks may not know about SAIC. I think people probably have heard of SAIC and probably think in their minds like, oh, this is a big defense contractor. But can you give us kind of that 30,000-foot view of what SAIC actually does?
Sure. I'm going to read you because I want to make sure for corporate enterprise level I get this information correct because this is going on the internet. So SAIC is a premier Fortune 500 company. We're a major technology integrator. Systems integration, that's a key to what we do. We've got a long history of doing systems integration on Army platforms, Air Force platforms, Navy platforms, but we're not just a DoD-based customer. We are primarily a government support type contractor. That's where our focus is. We do a lot of work in the civilian sector as well. We're across defense, space, civilian, and intelligence markets. We know since 9/11, the emergence and continuous growth of the intel market. We're there. With solutions in engineering, IT modernization, and mission solutions. What we like to say is we like to bring capabilities to customers, stay out ahead of customers, and be ready to receive that pass when the customer wants to throw that pass to us. It's a great company to work for. We're headquartered out of Reston, Virginia. We have between 25 and 26,000 employees, mostly CONUS, but we have prime contracts and subcontractors basically all over the globe supporting that customer base.
And I'm an acronym police person just because
well,
not everybody's military like us, Billy. So CONUS is Continental United States, for those that don't know. And, you know, of the many different technologies that you work with, counter UAS is a big area of expertise for you, obviously. I believe we have a really cool reel to roll. So why don't you walk us through this?
Okay, this is one of the demos we did locally south of Huntsville. partnered with our SCI San Mina facility. This is actually on their facility. So we wanted to demonstrate for our customer base and anybody who wanted to come. So we invited OGAs. Let's talk. This particular one, I believe, was done for the FAA. We're talking Customs Border Protection folks were there. FBI was there. Some of our Army customer base were there who actually manage the Army's UAS program so they can see some of the counter effects to their smalls. But what you're seeing specifically is the AeroGuard system. That's a six rotor bladed system. And this is part of our kinetic mitigation capability. And what you're seeing is that drone actually being captured. That's a Class 1, actually being captured by the Aerodrone system made by San Mina. We have the capability to bring that drone back to us, drop it at another location, or send it back to its point of origin and detection. So it's a great capability, an example of one of our great partners at SAIC for our Valkyrie system.
Well, we're going to talk more fully about Valkyrie here momentarily, but just looking at that, Billy, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, you said the word intel, and when you think about counter UAS, to be able to kind of capture that drone and then take it for exploitation later, I think is really critical, right? You don't want to just be blasting these things out of the sky necessarily, because you lose a lot of that intel. So that's a really cool system. I have to admit, I don't know that I've ever seen that 6-blader before. So really with the net, that's really cool. Now, you mentioned you have a huge presence globally, but in Huntsville, where you are located, you have about 1,800 people. It's like your second largest location. Is that right?
That is correct. So in Huntsville, there's actually 2,600 SAIC
Okay.
employees. Supporting the Army Business Unit, the number is 1,800. So we've had a significant presence in Huntsville starting back 4 decades ago. Our building, our headquarter building here on the north side of Huntsville, has been here, was one of the very first buildings established in the research park area. And so we've been with Huntsville to watch it grow, and we've taken advantage of that growth, and we've benefited our customers through that growth as well.
Well, a part of that 2,700, I think, or 2,600 people you just mentioned is this counter UAS team that you've gathered. And I assume you did that for a reason, right? So first, tell us, in your opinion, let's kind of look back a little bit of the role of drone technology today on the battlefield in particular, because I think, I've talked about this a lot. When you look at what's happening on the battlefield, Ukraine, Russia, it's not a far leap of the imagination to think Homeland Security. Like any of these things can happen in Huntsville. They can happen here in Colorado Springs, where I'm located. So tell us, from your perch, what are you seeing with regards to some of this drone technology today?
Well, I like to focus on. Well, I don't like to use the term threat. I like to use the term risk and risk management. And
Okay.
so I think a lot of our information really comes from our customer base. So we engage all aspects of customers, from civilian organizations, pseudo-civilian organizations, municipalities, OGA. Think Customs Border Protection. Think most people don't think of the Corps of Engineers and the requirements they have to manage and protect critical infrastructure to our nation's commerce.
Yeah,
Right?
I mean, dams, right? I mean, by the way, everybody, if you don't know this, I used to teach Homeland Security at Colorado State University of Pueblo. Go on DHS's website, CISA. They have a great outline of the 16 sectors of critical infrastructure for this country, and that's the framework that they use. And dams actually are one of them, right? So great point. Army Corps of Engineers, these OGA or other government agencies. It's, DOD doesn't have the primary mission of protecting critical infrastructure in this country. Most people don't realize that I think by statistics, anywhere from 70 to 90% of critical infrastructure is owned by the private sector. Think about that for a second. So you're listening to all of them, is what you were saying.
Yeah, I mean, it's really just up to your imagination where you could see vulnerabilities and threat. We understand there's bad actors out there every day. The amount of damage that can be done through gun violence, can you imagine the amount of damage that can be done with a fairly sophisticated attack at a fairly low cost to those? Sometimes we're uncomfortable talking about that, but I think we have to take those blinders off and have discussions about where our vulnerabilities are and what the actual threats could be. Think about anything like a large event. Down here in Alabama, SEC football is king. every Saturday during football season down in Tuscaloosa. That stadium's full of 110,000 people. And it doesn't take much of an event to cause a secondary event, whether it be trampling or whatever, that would cause a significant loss of life. And as important, the feeling amongst our population that we're not as safe and secure as we thought. And based on what we saw during 9/11, the overall impact and the second and third order effects of events like those. And so it's like you say, it's not just other government agencies. It's not just municipalities and large DOD customers. It could be private sectors. It could be critical infrastructure. You can knock out power for 6 days and significantly affect the revenue, commerce, and freedoms of the American people on a very small scale.
Yeah, I smiled as you were talking about the stadium there, Billy. So everybody out there, another commonality that Billy and I share in our background is we were both graduates of the Air War College, which is in Montgomery, Alabama. And having lived there for a year in Alabama, there's two questions whenever you meet somebody from there. They'll say, number one, what's your church home? And number two, Auburn or Alabama. That's it. Like, those are the only two questions they need to know about you. So no, absolutely. Football is king down there. I totally agree. And so protecting that is important. And, you're talking about some of these kinetic risks. I'll use your word, risks. But, there's a lot of other risks to critical infrastructure, even things like espionage. I was just in an event in DC last week, and it was Chatham House rules, so I can't attribute this to any particular speaker, but something I honestly didn't think about was, hey, landing a drone on a roof of a building and letting that drone through the various sensors listen in to what's happening, either electronically, audibly, all kinds of ways. And so, the threats, I agree with you, or the risks are, really only limited to your imagination. And so this idea of having a counter drone industry that is, number one, technically sound, and number two, of course, regulatorily enabled. That's a whole nother discussion. Maybe we'll get to it, maybe we won't. Is really going to be key, I think, to protecting our security. But some of the technologies, because you work with a lot of different technologies that you've seen over time. How have you seen the drone risk, shall we say, change from, let's just say, 10 years ago to what we're seeing today over the battlefields?
I'd like to use a sort of a story to baseline this, right? And we'll use Iraq and Afghanistan and the development of our threats when we talk about improvised explosive devices. It's very crude, and so you could argue sophisticated, whether it be a pressure plate device or whether it be a cell phone controlled detonated device. It wreaked havoc on our operations. Obviously, we lost a lot of service members, a lot of casualties during those events, and it changed the way that we fought significantly. We didn't deal with the drone issue. We didn't deal with the delivery, that system of aerial delivery, nor did we have sophisticated equipment and capabilities like we do now to address those. So I think that's a great example of how the threat is constantly evolving. So some of the technology that I see that are a bit concerning for us, right? Being a provider of counter UAS is we have different ways of defeating. We have a layered system. We can detect it via radar. We can detect it through RF signature. We can detect it through EI and IR capabilities. Those are all great layered systems, and they allow us the ability to see those. We can actually identify any drone in our database that's sold on Amazon, right? Majority of which I believe are probably made and exported from China. But what about that person who's fairly sophisticated and can build his own drone with his own control, with his own radio control frequency that's not listed in a particular database? It's difficult for anybody defending against a threat to understand, is that a friendly drone, or is that a kid just got a drone for Christmas and doesn't understand the rules for where he or she can fly that drone, or is that an actual true threat? And I think going back to your discussion, right, with landing something on top of a building, the concern is that not only do you have to detect that threat, you have to identify that threat, and you have to make sure you're managing your mitigations within the current laws of this country, which I think is a topic we should probably get to at some point outside the technology if we have some time. But another technology we're concerned about is fully autonomous capabilities. So a drone that's programmed to navigate without use of GPS or an RF signal to a location and execute a mission fully autonomously. Now, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but we all know AI and ML is on everyone's mind. We know that facial recognition, vehicle recognition, building recognition can be built into these capabilities. There are actually companies out there that can use LiDAR and processing capability as a way of navigating versus using a GPS signal, which can be jammed by our system or a number of vendor systems.
Right.
That to me is a significant threat because basically you have a partially AI ML enabled device that can operate almost fully autonomously with a mission in mind and a target in mind that can identify a target and take that target out. So on the back end, when you evaluate what's going on, it's very challenging to attribute that attack to someone else. And it can probably have a high probability of having the desired effect for whatever purpose.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this quite a bit in the cyber arena, right? This challenge of attribution oftentimes, right? Because they're bouncing things across servers and VPNs across the world, and how do you find the actor? I mean, right? Drones are flying computers essentially. So, I mean, you're absolutely right. With these sophisticated technologies, staying out, I'm going to steal this from Defense Solutions, who I know is one of your partners and who has been on the show, and in fact has an upcoming show this month with Danny Verjan, one of their general manager. Staying one step ahead of threat in this arena is very difficult. And even the less sophisticated people, but the ones that are not cataloged, like the dude in his garage, right, making his homegrown drone that's going to do something crazy. All of that. But I think the cyber solution is like you talked about, multi-layer defense. Having some kind of a cyber option in your toolkit, I think, is key. But let's talk about exactly what SAIC has been doing in this counter drone realm, because you've been working on this for a while. I mean, in other words, this isn't something, some recent market that you all just broke into. I mean, we're talking the 2012 Olympics and even before that you've been involved in this.
So we got into this business through the larger umbrella of force protection, right? And so force protection in Iraq and Afghanistan, think gate security, think about systems that would provide updated information and quick. I can't go into details because some of those systems are classified,
Sure.
But the importance of ability to observe, detect, neutralize particular threats. So through that, we got into the counter UAS business. Now we have a system that we do through one of our contracts here called the Medusa system. It's primarily for the Air Force, and it's used to protect areas that the Air Force deems are a high risk to these types of events. We learned a lot from working with the Medusa program. Our engineers here in Huntsville still support the Medusa program, but we thought, hey, listen, if we clean sheeted a design using available innovative software technology and capabilities, I think we can do it better. Now, the Medusa system is a great system. The Air Force customer loves that system. But what we're seeing amongst our customer base here is we want an open systems architecture that allows us to quickly integrate new capabilities. It's different from the way DoD, which is our primary focus right now, it's different from the way the DoD typically does programs of record. They typically want to buy everything as one big thing, and they want to own it for 30 years, and they want to sustain it for 30 years. Right. And they want to train their soldiers on the exact same system. I don't think with the evolution of threat and technology, I don't think that's the best approach, and that's not the approach that SAIC is taking. When you look at our capabilities and what we bring, I call it the menu of options that we can bring to the table. I think that really supports the menu of the myriad of customers, and the customers' requirements and the customers' limitations, whether that be the environment they're operating in, what they can do at their location based on either law or the environment they're operating in. I think we bring a great option for the customer. And sometimes customers go, well, I like to see, a branded system of all the components, and not just, you're making a C2 system and I've got I've got all these other sensors and effectors that we consider to be best of breed as part of it. And I would just tell that customer, not one vendor makes all the Army's aircraft, all the tanks, all the weapons, all the personnel carriers, all the aircraft. The Army decides who makes the best one of those things and integrates those into a combat force, all the way down from squad level, all the way up to joint level. And we think that is the approach that we're taking. Bring the best of breed, sensors and effectors, to bring an overall integrated capability. And we think that's the best approach for our customer, and where we might differ from some of our competitors.
Well, Billy, hey, look, in the last couple of years, the DoD has been trying to pivot. It's really hard to get a giant organization like that to pivot. You know this, right? Having been in it and involved in it. But this idea of MOSA, or modular open systems approach, I think they get it. I think they're trying to, in their RFPs and their solicitations, trying to incorporate that, the plug and play. You see a lot with DIU, Defense Innovation Unit, the Blue framework, where it's actually a requirement, for those companies that they are able to integrate. And so the approach you're taking is spot on. That's exactly what they're looking for. And I do have to make one other comment from what you just said. I always crack up when I listen to these names. I don't know who sits behind the desk in the Air Force or across the DoD making up these names like Medusa. I just remember there was one, they put it out, the Gorgon Stare. It was a sensor suite. Maybe it was part of the Medusa platform. I'm not sure, but I love the names. Hey guys, keep them coming. Speaking of keeping them coming, I know you guys are out there. We can see you on LinkedIn, on YouTube. So don't forget that we are live. And so if you have questions for Billy, if you've got comments, just even tell us where you're from and give us some positive encouragement. We love all of that. So we'll be standing by for the first brave person to jump into the chat today, but we know you're out there. So that's awesome. So you mentioned all of the things you've been doing, but you have significant expertise in this field for counter UAS in particular. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the team you've compiled there at SAIC to do this work?
Sure. And I can't, I think there's an opportunity for us to talk. Maybe in a slide we can talk through some of our teammates. For our internal team, really, this is just I like affectionately call them software engineers, and that's exactly what they are. They're amazing. So these are guys who can go in there and they can code for hours and hours and hours. They come up with great ideas on how to improve the user interface, and but they're also the guys that go out to Yuma, get their boots dusty, sit out there for hours on end waiting for their test event to occur. They physically set up the equipment, and this is not an easy task in some very, very challenging environments, right? If you've been to Yuma, you know what it's like. It's either hot or it's cold, but it's always dusty and it's always windy, and it's always hours of boredom, with 2 or 3 minutes of sheer excitement, right, as you're able to detect and engage targets, and it's absolutely a wonderful event. But I think there's some of the best in the best. I like to highlight one of our guys. I won't call him out by name because his head is already big already. We were down at Soft Week a couple of weeks ago. We did a demonstration of a Valkyrie system. We had a lot of soft customers come up. And
when you say soft, you're talking about special operations forces.
Special operations that support the different soft organizations down in SOCOM. You can always tell them because they only have their first name and their last initial. You're never sure whether it's actually their name. And they always ask a lot of questions. They don't provide a lot of information, and they don't provide their card.
They are, but they're great, to be sure.
It's great engagement opportunity because I think for a customer base, they're very forward thinking. They see things in a different light. They like to move rapidly, and they're engaging threats all the time that most Americans don't know about.
Yeah.
And so one of these individuals came up, and he had a good extensive background on software, and he really took our tech into the deep water. And I watched him just answer every single question and take this individual into the deep water. And the SOCOM representative looked at me, knowing that I'm not a technologist, and said, "Hey, this guy is really, really smart." And just a shout out to our team. They are really, really smart, but they're also very hardworking and dedicated to this mission. And I'm very proud to represent these guys.
Well, and they're also award winning. So I want you to tell us a little bit about your Edison Award win.
Okay, I want to make sure I get this right. Because I got some talky points. But this is not the first award that we've gotten. And I want to be cocky because I had absolutely nothing to do with the Edison Award. The Edison Award has been around since 1987, and it's really to recognize those folks in the industry that are really being innovative. We won this one, I think, maybe about a month ago. If you're following SAIC, you saw the LinkedIn post. There's Greg Fortier and our engineering lead, Jeremy Davidson, and they're really enjoying a nice little break, if you can believe it, at this formal event to receive this award. A lot of our competitors were there, and a lot of really good companies were there. We're pretty excited. We're pretty excited about the Edison Award. In the end, it's really about recognizing our team and our ecosystem, but it's also about recognizing, I think, the overall enterprise that supports counter UAS, and we're really proud to be a part of that and be recognized for our innovative approach there. When the customer sees you won an Edison Award, they go, "That's great. That's nice." We like to show it. We like to take that award to our shows and show it to them. We did it Soft Week, and I think it's really a feather in a cap for our team here at SAIC.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know this with your military background, Billy. It is a team sport, right? No matter what you do. And in this case, you mentioned already you have this kind of ecosystem of partner solutions, that you're an integrator of this technology. So tell us a little bit about your list of vendors and partners for counter UAS, and basically just the overall concept of this list, and then how companies contribute to your strategy.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave some people off here. It's not intentional. We select our vendors based on their openness and willing to work with us to integrate the system. It's one thing to talk about an open system and integrating sensors and effectors. It's another thing to range bound that capability. So with the 40 sensors and effectors we've integrated, not inclusive on this list, obviously, between 2 days and 2 weeks. Now, wow. That is very, very impressive, and I think it speaks to our piece, right? So we're constantly engaging vendors in this space because we're looking for new technologies. We're looking for people on the cutting edge to address the evolving threat. We'll engage them and say, listen, they'll say, "Hey, is your system truly open?" I say, "Come, let's have a meeting. Let's get the engineers together, and let's demonstrate how open it is." And I think that speaks well of our company. And I think it speaks well of our vendors willing to open up, provide some intellectual property good enough for us to integrate the system, the APIs required, the information required to go and do that. And I think it speaks well of SAIC's approach here, and industry's willingness, other vendors' industry's willingness to come in and take our approach and say, "Listen, we're competing with you in certain areas. If a customer wants a single system or a single capability, we might be competing against SAIC, but we like your approach here and a layer approach, and we want to be part of that team." And we certainly appreciate those vendors.
Well, one thing I have to say before I ask this next question is Desi Eckstein is out there coming at us from Southern California saying great information, and agreeing, by the way, that Yuma has harsh conditions. So great to see you out there, Desi. Desi is a super fan and very active in Women in Drones, and has her own coffee connection for Women in Drones. So thank you, Desi. I want to, because there are a lot of people like Desi and others out there that are listening, Billy, that may want to become part of your ecosystem. So how, as a practical matter, does a company become part of your overall counter UAS portfolio?
I would say, we're a large company, but we act like a small company in the way we move. It's simple conversations. It's not going through the top down. It's direct communications. I'm the business development director for counter UAS programs. I'm always available. I think my information is going to be shared in the transcript of this. Jeremy Davidson is our lead engineer, and he takes phone calls all the time. When we're at trade shows, we get cards, and we try to put deals together in terms of come and integrate your system. We're very open to those discussions. Even if you're a competitor to one of our existing systems, we're constantly looking for who's innovating, who's evolving, who's managing obsolescence within their portfolio, and who's working to reduce costs for the customer base. So we talk about requirements all the time for our customers. Some of those requirements are, "Hey, I just got this little bit of money and I need to do this with it." And so we're constantly looking for, we understand Moore's law. Things over time at scale, as technology evolves, should get less expensive and less expensive relative to normal inflation rates. And so we're constantly looking for those customers who can provide a value-based capability that would be compelling for our customer base. So please reach out to me directly. I'll be happy to link you up with the team. We will definitely engage.
Well, that's awesome. And obviously, we're talking DoD, we're talking critical infrastructure in the homeland, OGA, as you called it, other government agencies within the United States. I would think those are your primary kind of market sectors. Did I miss any for this kind of technology?
Oh, absolutely.
State agencies, local, municipal.
Look, SAIC has a history. Talked about the Olympics of 2012. That was actually a DCS case with the Greek government. So we're not. We can offer our capability. You can buy the system. You can buy the sustainment for the system. That's one way you can purchase it. You can also get the capability as a service. So if you wanted to define what the service was in terms of its capabilities to mitigate, all the tenets of our counter-UAS capability, and you want us to come in and set it up and run it 24/7, we can absolutely do that too. We think a large market, and I won't say it's untapped because it has been tapped for our capability, is the foreign military sales or direct commercial sales market. If you look at areas, there's plenty of use cases. A lot of them don't get news. I think a lot of times we choose not to address wicked problems in this country and other places, right? We know that UAS threats are out there. We see it, I won't say every day. Sometimes we don't even see it. A lot of it lives in the classified world, but we know that it's there. But it's a tough problem to solve because we have to do the balance of the risk management, right? What's the probability of it occurring versus the cost, and what are the effects of that occurring? And some people would rather put their resources somewhere else. I think it was a couple of years ago, we saw an attack on a Saudi Arabian oil refinery, oil production facility that was caused significant interruption in the capability. I think there's customers there that deem themselves targets, whether it be individuals at high levels of government or whether it be key infrastructure that not only has impacts on that country, but has ripple effects all over the world. We're working every day to try to engage that customer base in the Mideast and anybody else who wants to protect their critical infrastructure that's key to the world commerce and global trade.
Well, that makes an abundant amount of sense. And, you're talking about investment, Billy, and getting back to that regulatory discussion, the lawyer answer is, where can you operate? It depends based on what authorities and what approvals you can get. And, perhaps in Saudi Arabia, especially after attack, like what you just mentioned, they and I remember, I think it was Saudi or maybe it was UAE, had a similar drone attack and just shut down the airspace completely. They said, no drone flights here anymore, period. And, that's not a scenario that you want to have, right? But getting the regulatory, the legal regime right, I think is so key. And I think that's why if you're seeing a reluctance in the United States, that's why, right? With people with limited budgets, they might realize there's a risk here, but hey, if I can't employ this technology because I need FCC approval, the FAA hasn't figured out the rules yet. They're just doing an aviation rulemaking committee now, and according to most of these OGAs in their interagency advisory memo that was written several years ago, if you even try to detect using RF or similar technology, you're violating a whole host of federal criminal statutes. And so, this needs to get fixed. I know you're in violent agreement with me on this. And so I hope someone out there is listening, someone, congressional staffer, someone in Congress. FAA reauthorization is coming up this year. We've got other opportunities in Congress to make a difference. These limited authorities that we have on the federal side are sunsetting again in September. And that is not a place where we want to be. And, just giving it to 5 federal agencies and, of course, them hamstringing themselves with very strict, abundantly strict policies on how to implement that's a whole different discussion. Okay. But not giving any authority to state, local, tribal, territorial first responders who in any kind of terrorist event are the ones that rush to the site. It's mind-boggling.
Yeah, can I just hit this nail one more time?
Yeah, I would love for you to.
I had a conversation non-attributable yesterday with somebody in the FAA and making policy, and it's frustrating because I worked for the government for many years. I understand how slow and bureaucratic the government.
Yeah.
Not one decision is made without a lawyer involved, and you know that because you used to be a lawyer.
Yes.
And it's because it's a very complex problem set. I like to say we should approach this as if something catastrophic just happened and how we react post that event. Because I agree with you more. A lot of folks in the government are waiting for industry to come up with innovative ideas to approach Congress and ask for, hey, can you push this through? I read recently that 4 senators and Congress people, most notably Kristen Sinema in Arizona, were trying to put forth legislation related to this. They see that in their territory, whether it's critical infrastructure, custom border protection, fentanyl coming across the border, whatever the threat is, they need law so they can act. And something that cuts across the state's federal law that they can act, because we can't let this continue without a capability, because an event will occur, and once it occurs, we're going to ask ourselves how we got here and how we let this happen when we could have acted in a preventative manner. And I could not agree more. I think there is legislation, there's title stuff. I can't go into those details because I'm just not smart enough to quote the numbers. But I think the government has to take the lead here. And I think each agency, whether it's OGA, DOD, DHS, they're all looking and admiring this problem set. We need Congress to take the lead, identify this as a threat, and push through some legislation. I think what we need, Dawn, is just a start of momentum and start moving.
Absolutely. I love your term, admiring the problem. We've been doing that for years. Hell, a drone landed on the White House lawn in 2015, everybody. Seriously, if that was not the wake-up call, I don't know what is. Unfortunately, I agree with you, Billy. We talked about this, and I don't think, I'm not going to, again, attribute this to a speaker, but we talked about the big tuna. Do we have to wait for the big tuna event to make a change? And sadly, that seems to be the way our government operates. It takes a Katrina for FEMA to reorganize, right? It takes a 9/11 to create an agency like DHS, which, by the way, everybody, Congress in an Appropriations Act a couple years ago actually appropriated funds for DHS to create a counter UAS czar position. Like, where is that person? I mean, maybe they exist. If they are, I haven't heard from them. I don't know what they're doing. Gee, I hope they're going to the FAA's ARC meetings, because frankly, security is not FAA's lane. But yeah, absolutely. Everybody out there, reach out to your local congressman. This is a serious issue. And, the counter drone technology and portion of this industry is a part of this industry. It's not counter the industry. It's an enabler. And until we can prove the skies are safe from those who would either intentionally do harm or the careless and clueless, plus the criminal, we're going to have some problems, everybody. So it's something that needs to be addressed for sure. But, one of the ways you're addressing it is through your Valkyrie system. And we're getting, I knew this would happen, Billy, because you and I would start yammering and, we lose track of time. I want to make sure we cover this Valkyrie system. So tell us about this.
So the Valkyrie system is what I've been talking about the entire time, right? So we separate Valkyrie from Medusa, but what we've been showcasing for the last 2 years and what we demonstrated at Yuma and continue to demonstrate today on the ground is our Valkyrie system. This is a clean sheet design based on our 15 years of experience in counter UAS, going back to the Olympics in 2012, and our force protection background. And it's a clean sheet design, open systems architecture, partnered with the best of breed sensors and effectors, a layered approach. And what's unique about our system, other than our approach, because the other part is we also have added into the back end an analytics and machine learning capability. And I like to tell a story because this story illustrates how effective this system is. So in our first demonstration in April of 2022 at Yuma, for the Joint Counter UAS Office, which is a joint agency that designs policy, doctrine, and requirements for all the joint. We did a test for them with varied capabilities. It's a typical 4-tenant system with some kinetic effects on the backside, aero guard. Some of the videos you've shown are a demonstration of our capabilities there. We were extremely successful. I won't go through what that means, but we were selected as one of top 3 systems to engage class 1 through 3 with different effects. And we have the memorandum from JCO to prove it. But one of the things that was unique about that is while our counter US operator was going through his procedures for mitigating a drone, and on the back end, one of the test observers was watching the screen, and he noticed there was a heat map screen on our trifold, and he says, "Hey, what is this?" And he goes, "Hey, well, since your first couple of missions, our sensors have been operating the entire time, whether it's our test or anybody else's test, just like we would normally do in a real environment. And so we can tell you where you're launching the drones every time you launch them, what the probability of a drone launch is there, based on time, the track, what track it's going to take, what altitude it's going to fly." And he looks at him and goes, "Hey, you can't do that. That's cheating." He said, No. This is not cheating. This is what we bring to the table in terms of analytics that push back into the machine learning that makes decision making for the operator that much more effective. So it is a great example of us bringing innovative technologies that this company brings to bear back into a system and demonstrating the importance of things like AI and ML.
Wow, that's incredible. And so Valkyrie is kind of the overarching term for the system that you've integrated, the 6-rotor, very unique kind of net spitting out
That's
drone,
right.
and all the sensors and effectors, and I assume some of those could be kinetic as well. So where is Valkyrie, to the extent that you can talk about it, like in what environments is it being employed?
So right now we're still in the test stage from a non-classified. We have several opportunities that we're looking at right now. One of the challenges we're seeing in our DoD customer base is there's a lot of discussion at high level senior leaders, Sec Army, Chief Staff of the Army, discussions at AUSA, Quad A, which are Army Aviation and Army level events, talking about counter UAS is a #1 priority for the Army. What we're not seeing is appropriated dollars flowing to those programs yet. But again, like I said, we want to be ready when the customer is ready. So we believe continuous engagement with the customer, demonstrating our capability at events like the JCO demo. So when money does become available and the customer has a requirement, or whether that requirement is for us, a foreign military sales customer, or ally of the United States government, that we're always on the minds of our customer. SAIC could do anything. SAIC is recognized this is a threat, and we want to be there for that. I want to note something else. I mean, our C2 system, we're demonstrating its capability.
And control.
Command and control, our C2 system, command and control, we're demonstrating through a counter UAS capability. What you have is a system that can integrate anything that you want to bring to the table. And so it's interesting. I talk about the soft base as a customer base, and how sophisticated they are. They come and they ask questions. They said, "Okay, this is counter UAS. What else can you do with this? Anything you want. Anything you want to integrate, we can do that." So we talk about JADC2, FADC2. We're talking about common operating picture, having one capability remotely to control a bunch of different sub capabilities. That's where I think the secret sauce is, and sometimes overlooked in the discussion of counter UAS.
Well, that's a great point, because, as part of a C2 system, we're going to see more of that on the commercial side eventually. Once we get a beyond visual line of sight rule, one operator to many, you're going to see more of these remote operation centers, just like mimic what you see in the military, doing the pipeline inspections, doing drone deliveries at some point, right? So there's a lot of different applications, I think, for what you just said, Billy, and it makes a lot of sense that counter drone is a part of that and integrated holistically into the entire system. We are getting super short on time, and I want to make sure that people know where maybe they can see you or Greg or one of your teammates, maybe at an upcoming conference.
Yes. So, SAIC supports AUSA. Obviously, a lot of great vendors do. It's a great organization, a great cause, and it's a great opportunity to engage customers, understand requirements, and senior leaders. Our next event is going to be AUSA. It's AUSA annual meeting and exposition in Washington D.C. in October.
Yeah.
We'll have a pretty good suite out there, including our Valkyrie C2 system, and as many sensors and effectors we can put in our booth there. We will be there. Please come by and see us. And in our next event, following that, we will be part of an SAE Media Group Counter UAS conference, and that'll also be in Arlington, Virginia, and that is 5 through 6 December, specifically in Crystal City. I believe it's in the Marriott Crystal City. So we hope you come out and support that. It's a great opportunity to keep abreast of what's going on, not only just with the technology, listen to vendors, but also They have folks come in from FAA, DHS to describe their problem sets, and we also get an update on where legislation is moving.
Well, that's amazing. And speaking of support, I'd be remiss not to thank you, Billy, and SAIC in general. You all were generous sponsors for my Law Tech Connect workshop in Denver, Colorado, associated with AUVSI Exponential. We had a networking event Sunday night that was amazing, really kicked off our Law Tech Connect workshop the next day, and you guys helped support that. And then, of course, everybody, we have our Energy Drone Robotics Coalition 7th Annual Summit coming up next week in Houston, Texas. On Monday, June 12th, from noon to 5, is my first inaugural Law Tech Connect Workshop Energy Edition. I still have VIP delegate passes for free. Please DM me, email me, reach out, because you get not only access to my workshop, you get a copy of my Unmanned Safety Institute drone law textbook, you get access to the main event and 2 happy hours, all for free, no strings attached. So please, please, please join us. It's going to be amazing. And SAIC is our silver sponsor for that event. So thank you, thank you, thank you for your support. We're going to have a phenomenal security panel for that. All right, we're like 1 minute over, and my producer is going to kill me, but I'm still going to ask you, Billy, what are your closing comments? What do you want to tell people before we close out?
Yeah, I'd really just like to thank the audience for taking their time to view this podcast, and for anybody who's dedicated their time to address this emerging threat of and be in the counter UAS space.
Awesome. And I believe we popped your contact information up there, everybody. So that is all she wrote for now. Thank you so much for joining us. This was an awesome conversation. Everybody, we are out here.